All right, now I'm getting an echo. Yep. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute you, but you'll be able to unmute when you want. So let's get this show going. Where's my presentation? I found it. And all righty, here we go. And let's get this going. Good evening, everybody. Well, at least it's evening here in Virginia. Welcome to, it's actually the third class in a series, How to Lobby on Federal Voting Rights. So thank you for joining us. Today, there'll be a very, very brief introduction of your facilitators. We're going to be looking at the current messaging on voting. It has changed. Then we're going to be going through the lobby meeting, which may be on Zoom, maybe in person, online research tools, and maybe advocacy tools if we have time. So today, your facilitators are going to be me. I'm Andrea Miller, and our Deputy Policy Director, Josie Reeder. Now, about me, I'm the founding board member of Center for Common Ground. I am the policy director. I was a federal lobbyist from 2010 until 2019. I currently chair the Democracy and Governance Working Group of the Virginia Green New Deal. And in 2008, I was the Democratic nominee from the Virginia 4th Congressional District. So I have spent a lot of my time around elected officials, mostly at the federal level, but also at the state level. Josie, I've been doing that all day. Josie is our deputy policy director, and she works to determine the legislative priorities at the local, state, and the national level. Josie also is the person who works with the various federal and state groups on messaging and producing the advocacy alerts and the actions for our members to engage in the fight for voting rights. Now, lobbying. There are more than 30,000 paid lobbyists in DC. What we do is we do citizen lobbying. In other words, nobody is going to pay us. So you were thinking, oh, I'm going to learn to lobby here and then I'm going to be making big money. No, nobody's paying you. We're doing citizen lobbying. Legislators or elected officials need educating. They don't know everything. As a matter of fact, there'll be a number that you meet where it seems like they don't know anything. But I digress. Anyway, as we all know, lobbying works. If it didn't work, corporations wouldn't invest billions of dollars every year to do it. Now, for us as citizens, it is our responsibility to let our elected officials understand our agenda and what we want. So, as I mentioned to Dick early on, if we don't ask or tell our elected officials what we want and we didn't get it, then that's on us. If we ask and they don't give it to us, then that's on them. Now, when we lobby, we want to be effective. Over the years, I have seen some very embarrassing and very ineffective lobbying. We want to be effective. So, lobbying, it is going to be an ongoing campaign. It is not something you do once a year for one day. If you think about who are the most impactful and effective lobbyists, all of you know probably several. The most effective lobbyists are children. Why? Because when they want something, they are consistent in their ask. and they are persistent in their ask, meaning they keep on asking it until they get it. So we have an ongoing campaign, and we have a series of planned actions. Now, our actions, so that we get what we want, they need to be carefully planned, carefully researched, and carefully executed. There is nothing that screams, I have no idea what I'm talking about, than walking into a legislator's office and asking them to support a piece of legislation where they have been a co-sponsor on that legislation for weeks, periodically years. So there are all kinds of tools that tell you who is currently a co-sponsor, co-patron, whatever you want to call it, of a bill. And that is one of the first things we need to know. The legislator that we're about to talk to, where are they? Are they for it? Are they for it as in they're on the bill? Did they say they were for it and they weren't on the bill, i.e. Senator Elizabeth Warren and a number of things that I supported? Or are they against it, and can they be moved? Lobbying, it's an art and it's a science. I'm going to call on Josie now, who has done so much work working with partners at the federal level. And there's about 200 of them in terms of how do we talk about voting these days. So, Josie?
Yeah, so one important part about lobbying is not only how you speak to your legislator, but also the community that you're trying to get support around. So if you want, your neighbors to support this bill that you care about, it's important to know what language to use for that to be effective. Some of you all may have been on these bi-weekly meetings where a group has studied using data how effective certain languages when talking about specifically the For the People Act. And one thing is very, very clear, and this also is in terms of lobbying your legislators, very true as well. You want to talk about positive things. You're never trying to refute something that the opposition is talking about. And you don't want to get too rhetorical. Unfortunately, words like democracy never work, especially when it comes to voters. They're like, well, I don't know what that means. Why should I care about it? Things that do work. So these are some messages that I will also, these slides will be shared with you all that you can see that highlight some really important parts of important language to use when you lobby your community and your legislators. Being inclusive. So this issue, the For the People Act, matters because it matters for everybody, no matter where you live, no matter your zip code. As a nation, America, we really, really care about freedom more than anything. That's why we say, don't protect my right to vote, but my freedom to vote how I choose, so I can safely and freely cast my ballot the way that I would like to. Talk about also legislators, how if, in supporting the For the People Act or the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, they're not only, taking action to protect you in the moment, but they're also doing a lot to ensure that everybody has their voices heard in the future, that protecting or your freedom to vote ensures stronger schools, better healthcare. So bringing it into things beyond just the vote is also really effective. I won't go on about this too much longer, but there's a really great toolkit that I will attach in a follow-up email that is open to the public. And yeah, so this is also art.votingrights.lab.org, has really, really great images. And I think it reflects, the value of certain language when talking about this. So freedom to vote is, again, that's my favorite one. That's the biggest one. It's the most effective. 2/3 of Americans across all political parties support the For the People Act when you use the right language and you get to talk to them about, the real impacts that has. For Together, protecting your freedom to vote, yeah, I don't, looking at anything else here. Counter denials, a lot of things people have also kind of linked in the insurrection that happened in January to this. So, you know, people that I feel a little iffy about, but that's one way to do it as well. I think in general, it's like you want to, because you're talking about unity. So how to bring everybody together as a nation, as politicians, you know, or our country, you know, we love freedom. We want to be able to all have the same freedoms to make decisions. So that's a really big, big key part of how you speak to your legislators and your community when you lobby around voting. Andrew, do you want to add anything else?
The one thing I'm going to add around voting is that we suddenly now in the 2021, we are kind of moving away from the word democracy because democracy includes almost all of the word Democrat. So that's why people are backing away from that to avoid being polarizing and to talk about, like you say, Josie, freedom. Everything now is about freedom because people will tell you, well, you know, I need to be free too. So sometimes when the other side starts getting the louder microphone, you look at what language are they using where we can use similar language and turn it around. Democracy had started to become Democrat, and for some people that was just an automatic knee jerk.
And sorry, one more thing I'll add too is the reason we have these same phrases like freedom to vote is consistency. Unfortunately, our old president was like stop the steal on Twitter was one of the most popular words. It was a very, very effective phrase. And so we're trying to kind of do that, but for, you know, better things. Freedom to vote is effective. People kind of understand it. And you want to be consistent. So if you see something, you don't need to recreate a new campaign or a new phrase. Like reusing things is really, really valuable when talking about the same issue. We don't need to recreate the wheel.
Great. Do you want to do lobby tools? Do you want to do it together? What do you think?
You could do this part and then I can show an example of a lobby tool.
For me, work for me. Now, I got a really, really, really good question before we started. It was from Dick, and Dick wanted to know when legislative offices, specifically congressional offices, get a bunch of emails, and the emails are obviously all the same. Does it matter and does it count? And the answer is yes. No, they don't read them all. They generally maybe read one or two. And then once they realize we're going to be getting possibly a couple of hundred of these, they treat them the same way they treat phone calls. They log whether you were for or against the bill, and then they count the number of emails. Now, what we do is when you lobby in person and your ideal lobby team is 3 to 5 people, that is not showing that there is a huge amount of support for a bill. However, when offices get a lot of phone calls and all the staff has to come out and answer the phone, or their email server is clogged up because of all the email they're getting, they get the message that there are a lot of people that feel very strongly about whatever this bill is. So there are tools that are available, and we actually have all of these that periodically we use. So we used to always use Action Network, where it would allow us to email legislators at the federal and the state level. And then we got a new tool called Ignite Advocacy, which gave us the ability to, on a single page, let people push the button, email their legislator or a group of legislators. If they were on Twitter, they could tweet the legislators. And if they chose, they could then call the legislators. Now, this works for federal and state advocacy. And then we also have an older tool called New Mode, which allows us to do patch through calls. What's a patch through call? You would put in your phone number and our system would call you back. And then it had looked up who your legislator was. It would patch you through to your legislator. We got that tool several years ago when we were lobbying around not having Jeff Sessions be the attorney general. All right, we're going all the way back to 2017. So, Josie, do you want to? This is Ignite Advocacy, the picture. Josie, are you ready to share your screen?
Yes, and also there is a question from, I think it's Athana, that I think is relevant to what we're talking about. So let me just open this if you want to answer that. Okay, on whether or not handwritten notes versus copy and paste emails are more effective. From what I know, as long as your name is in them, it is very effective. And usually it's a lot more impactful if you are a constituent, unless you are sending emails to a committee. If the bill is not in committee, it usually only matters if you're a constituent emailing, tweeting at, or calling your representative. But it can be generally a copy and pasted email because they're just reading what the main ask is. Sorry, I should have put this in beforehand.
I never remember to do that, so that's just fine. I'm going, oh yeah, it's like right, then we got it. All right, yeah, well, in New York, shorter than Virginia.
Yeah, at least you can write me a postcard now. Okay, so this is Ignite Advocacy. This is a tool that you all can't unfortunately use by yourself. It is very expensive, but it is one where if you would like to create an action, we can make one for you. It is really great because it is unbranded. So it kind of works for any organization. You don't even have to be part of an organization to have an action. This is one I will send in the chat if you haven't signed it yet, because it's very relevant. The House is most likely going to vote and also more than likely going to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act next week. And this is basically an email or an action calling on folks to contact the representative to vote to pass it. So there's different ways that you could do this. I've got a pretty great representative here in Brooklyn, but if I wanted to lobby him about this, I would be able to tweet him. You can write an email, and again, this will automatically correct when they send an email. It will say, "Dear Representative Jeffries," but you'll see here at the very bottom, you can always check that my name is signed off. If you like the email, if you don't like it, you can change it. But the ask is very clear at the top. You just click this button and it will send the email. Another really great thing about this tool is that you can call your legislator also from this action. If you're on your phone, this will be a live dial. Otherwise, if you're on your computer, it's right here. We also always have a script written for you to read from to talk to your representative. Again, I will put my email in the chat and in the follow-up email if this is something you're ever interested in having for yourself or your community or with a different organization. It is a really effective tool. We used it in Georgia a lot. And we definitely made some changes because of that. So yeah, that is Ignite Advocacy.
All right, great. Thank you, Josie. Yay. All right, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And Josie showed you one example where it was addressed solely to whoever your legislator happens to be. We did one in Virginia. It was on voting rights, and it was for restoration of rights for people with past felony convictions. You will notice there are multiple people that are appearing on this one because this one was directed to everyone on a committee. So when a bill is in committee and you are awaiting a committee vote, every member of that committee is a fair target, whether they are your legislator or not. So again, it was Ignite Advocacy. I'm showing you the email, and then you can also see that we could phone the members of the committee as well. Now, I'm going to talk about actually lobbying, whether you're on Zoom or whether you're going to actually go to their office for a sit down. So normally there have been some digital actions that have already taken place normally. And now you're going to actually go and pay a visit and try to find out, if you don't already know, where that legislator is on your bill. So you're going to decide where you're going to meet. Will you meet in their office, or are you going to meet on Zoom? So if they have a really big district, Zoom may be better because potentially you can get people from all the different corners of the district. This is about a flash lobby. I forgot I did the street lobby. We're not doing too many of these, but every once in a while, I'm seeing people are starting to do them again. A flash lobby is when you get a group of people that's bigger than 5 showing up at a legislator's office. Most legislative offices are in reasonably busy areas of the city or county. So 3 to 5 people go in for the actual meeting, and then you can have a group of people with Ignite Advocacy on their phone, and then they can talk to people passing by. Would you like to call the representative and talk to them about X? So while the lobby team is actually in the office meeting, then they're actually getting calls from people saying they want them to support the legislation. So again, what we love about Ignite Advocacy is now there's the short script built right inside Ignite Advocacy. And Josie, do you want to talk about your lobby toolkit? I moved it way up because I thought, I wanted to make sure everybody gets to hear about this.
Sure. I'm not sure if I'm the only one. I have weird internet, but are other folks' slides still on the Ignite Advocacy alert, or is that just me?
I think it's
yeah, that's right.
Yes.
It's just you.
Okay. Okay.
Actually,
No,
I'm just seeing the Ignite.
I'm seeing Ignite Advocacy also.
Oh, okay.
So am I.
All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new share and see if I can get it up there. Is that better?
No.
No.
Should
Same
I try?
slide.
You try.
Weird. Okay.
Totally
One
bizarre.
second.
All right.
Well, this is my slide of
Oh,
the.
there it is.
So I have created a lobbying toolkit. Specifically, it has a lot of general points. I think I'm echoing. If everybody can just mute themselves. Okay, cool. So yes, this is a nifty little toolkit that I put together, kind of highlighting everything that Andrea has already gone through in past trainings, with a lot of specifics on how to set up meetings with your federal legislators. Often that can be a little different because they have more constituents, so always make sure to check on their websites. We also have a lot of talking points in this toolkit for voting rights specific language. Currently around the For the People Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, DC statehood, a very, very important voting rights bill, and also filibuster reform. There are a lot of other voting rights bills out there that have been introduced in Congress recently. So if there are any that you are interested in lobbying your senator or your representative around, let me know. This is a live document, so I'm always happy to add more talking points. I will send this to everybody again after the training. You'll probably get it on Monday. So yeah, I hope it's useful to you all.
All right, and Josie, keep sharing your slides, and my slides got weird and people couldn't see them. Mm-hmm. All right, we were talking about the meeting. When you're setting up a meeting, you're going to want to make an official request in writing. Normally on your legislator, your member of Congress's website, there will be a meeting request form where you can fill that out and then follow up with a phone call. And then decide, are you meeting with the legislator? Generally, it'll probably be with their staffer in the DC office, or are you meeting in a district office? If you're meeting in a district office, you can frequently just call the district office number and set up a meeting. It is a little more complicated to get a meeting in DC, which is why when I lobby in DC, I never make appointments. I just barge in. But that's just me. And then the digital advocacy, the petitions that we may have done before, letters to the editor. We always want the legislator to know that there is broad support. I frequently lobby with the Faithful Democracy team. Republicans do not dare say no to us when we request a meeting, because then we could rightly say they don't like God, because all the different religious groups showed up. Surely you like one of us. And they said no. So we always get a meeting. And one of the things we always tell them about our big three voting rights bills is this is an unprecedented amount of support we have for these bills. Next slide.
Oh, sorry.
All right, now your lobby group, and this is whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in the office. You don't lobby with a gang. You lobby with a group. That's 3 to 5 people. If you brought a gang with you, leave them outside the door, accosting people as they're walking by. Would you like to call Representative or Senator so-and-so and tell them that you support blah, blah, blah? Well, I'm not sure what to say. Here, we've got it all written down for you. Push the button, make the call. So your ideal group, 3 to 5 people, and make sure that there's at least one person who is very comfortable talking about the bill in the event the staffer has questions. And it's great if you can have at least one constituent. That's why Zoom is so great when you have a big district, because you're very, very likely that you're going to find at least one constituent somewhere. Next slide. Now, who should attend? We already talked about the numbers, 3 to 5 people. And it is great to have a diverse constituency, men, women, diverse in terms of race, gender, so that it's not, oh, I get it. Yeah, this is a Black people bill. That's all that's supported. Or I get it. This is a women's bill. Whenever we lobbied on the ERA, we always tried to make sure there was always at least one male with every group that went out, so that we didn't get the, oh, yeah, right, we're talking about that women stuff. Be respectful, be early, look presentable. If this isn't something that you do often, practice just so that you're comfortable and you don't forget your name and everything else when it becomes your time to talk. Next slide. Now, roles. This is, remember I said it's going to be carefully planned. It's carefully planned. Number one, you want a facilitator, a person who's going to get everybody in the room, get them all seated, and will have the packet or the letter that you're going to give the staffer. The facilitator will facilitate the introductions. We've all been in meetings where let's do some introductions, and everybody looks at each other like, well, who's going to go first? The facilitator will say, I'd like to introduce you to Bob. Bob is from da-da-da-da, and then Bob will give his name. If Bob's got an org, he'll give it. And then you want to have storytellers. Your storyteller is going to be your constituent who is going to let the office know this is why this bill is important to me. Then you need somebody like me who can stare them in the eye, ask them the question, well, are you going to support this piece of legislation or not? You may have an educator, somebody that's got a lot of facts, and then you've got that secretary who is collecting all the cards that are being thrown on the table. They're getting the staffers' cards. If other members of your lobby group have cards, they're passing those to the staffer. So you look well organized and everybody knows what they're going to do. Next slide.
One little note about storytellers for federal voting rights legislation. Especially if you live in a state where legislators have passed a bill that will restrict your ability to vote, like in Georgia, for example, having someone there that voted by mail but no longer will be able to tell their story and how your federal legislator would be able to protect their freedom to vote how they did in the past is a great example of a storyteller for voting rights legislation.
Love it. All right, now, when you're doing an office visit, I normally run big lobby teams where I will go on Capitol Hill with anywhere from 7 to 25 people. I normally have a letter printed and addressed to every legislator we're going to see with their name and their office number on it. There are 3 buildings in DC that house the congressional legislators, be it Senate or be it House. I have the letters sorted by building, starting with the top floor, working my way to the ground floor. Yes, I've done this before. So make sure you know where you're trying to go. And then there are free apps that you can have on your phone. If you are lobbying in DC, Congress is a great free app to have. Unfortunately, it only operates on Android. You can also use Trackbill, which operates on Android and iPhone. It will list the legislator and it will give you their office number. And it will also give you the office phone number, because every once in a while in Capitol Hill, when they are getting ready for a new Congress to be seated, and immediately after, up until March, offices are fluid. They might have been in one office for 10 years, but all of a sudden now you go to that door and they're not there. You may need to call them and find out, where are you now? Next slide. All right, running the meeting. Normally, your meetings are going to be relatively quick. So the introductions, 2 minutes, the name and the city that the people are from. Why are you here? Boom. And then we're going to give you on this thumb drive our 500, 10,000, whatever it is, number of petitions. Then you're going to have some really quick facts. Now your story time, and it's really quick. So we don't want people who need long ramp up times, and they're going to need to rehearse and have it really, really tight. And then the ask is very, very quick. If it's the legislator, will you vote yes on our bill? It might be a committee vote, it might be a floor vote, whatever it is. Ask the question and then shut the hell up. I don't care if it gets uncomfortable. Wait till you get an answer. If you're talking to a staffer, staffers can't really tell you what their boss is going to do. What they may do is say, well, we normally support bills like this. And so we are taking a favorable view, but we want to review it a little more. Are there details in the bill that are concerning you? And then there might be about 5 minutes of that. And then thank them very much for their time. Pick up your stuff, get the hell out of there. If you are going to do a debrief on premises, get away from their office and go to a different floor, because staffers, the legislators, come out of the office, they're going down the hall to be going to the bathroom. They don't need to be overhearing what you and your group thought about the meeting with their office, which is why I said go to a different floor. Next slide. Now, you do want to engage the staffer. You want to pause after each main point, ask the staffer if they have questions, especially when you do the closing question. Will your boss vote yes on this bill? They don't know. We voted yes on previous bills like this. We've never voted for a bill like this, and we never will. Or, I'll talk to him. You've brought up some points that we've never heard from before. Most staffers are going to be reasonably honest with you, or as honest as they can be about where their boss is probably going to come down on the bill. Every once in a while, you get a surprise. And then if there's any controversial points, like one of the controversial points of the For the People Act is that it contains the Democracy Restoration Act, meaning upon release from prison, people would immediately have the ability to register to vote. There are even some Democrats who found that controversial. So be prepared to address those points. Next slide. I already talked about the ask. It's straight to the point. Ask the question, be silent, and wait for the answer. Now, what you do with the answer. If they say yes, great. We are so glad you're on board. Now, who else can you bring on board? So it's not just yes, and now, great, you don't need to know anything else. Congress is like a very exclusive country club of 535 people in the entire world. They know each other. So if one person gets on a bill, they know who they work out with, they know their views on different things. Ask them, who else can you bring on board? And they may, right off the top of their head, say, oh, well, you should, if you haven't already, go talk to da-ding and da-ding and da-ding and da-ding. And if you were thinking about someone, you can ask them, well, what about Senator so-and-so? Well, you know, we've never been able to get them on anything like this, but what the heck, go ahead and try. And then if they say, no, we unfortunately cannot support this right now, what's holding you back? Why are you not able to support this bill? And they may tell you. Next slide. Handouts. Do not ever go to a legislative office and not bring a handout. If you do this, I don't know you. When we go and visit legislators, we bring a one-page document that very carefully walks them through why we want them to support this bill. Hopefully you will have a constituent with you as a voter in your district. We always lobbied for our organization, which was national, and we had members in every state. So we would always say, we've got hundreds of thousands of members in your state. And then the letter always started as a voter in your state, and then blah, 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 blah. If they have supported other legislation like this in the past, put down that other legislation that they've supported and say, this is better, just as good, whatever. And then give the staffers the talking points. Yes, we're going to email you the entire slide deck. All right, next slide. Thank the legislator. Send a written note to their office and kind of get them going, you know, they were nice. We liked, they came, they made their point. Even if they said no, they weren't going to support it, when you send them the thank you letter, you automatically go on that list of people that they will be willing to see the next time you ask for an appointment. Stay in touch, keep the relationship alive, because there's going to be another voting rights bill coming along, and you're going to need to go back and see them and try to get them on that bill. And the name of our organization is Center for Common Ground. And we ended up coming up with that name because I realized when I had spent all that time on Capitol Hill, toward the end of the time that I was there, I was spending more time with people on the opposite side than people who were allegedly on my own side. And I had built up enough of a relationship with them that they would frequently ask me, well, who do you know on the Democrats who might be willing to co-sponsor a bill with us? And then we would get into the mom and kid relationship. Would you tell them about my bill, and would you ask them to co-sponsor the bill with me? No, I'm not your mother. You're going to go over there and ask them yourself. Will you tell them I'm coming? No, you can go over there and tell them yourself. What am I? Am I your mother? Get out of here with that. And the Democrats were the same way. Will you go ask the Republicans? Go over there and ask them yourself. So again, try to find common ground. Next slide. Your thank you letter, summarize your key points, review how what you have recommended they do will help gather support for getting them reelected, without basically saying that. People who are elected are always thinking about how they're going to get reelected. All right.
Sorry, I'm all over the place. Okay.
I know, we're going backwards, we're going forward. All right.
Here we go.
All right, here we are. Now, after you've made your lobby visit, keep up the pressure. There will be a next round of letters and petitions, maybe meetings, maybe more capital lobby days, until you're building up for that committee vote or the floor vote. So when a bill gets introduced, gathering co-sponsors, will there be a committee vote? Yes. We ramp up the pressure for the impending committee vote. We get a successful committee vote. Now we ramp up the pressure again because now we want the bill to go to the floor. Now, indirect pressure. Can we get letters to the editors in their district? Then we can send it to them. Can we do a press conference in front of their district office? If you are trying to do a press conference in DC, you better have 2 members of Congress with you. Otherwise, the DC press doesn't care. When you're in district, the press can be very, very intrigued by, we're going to have a bunch of people in front of Senator so-and-so's office, and we're all going to have signs that say, like, oh, that could be interesting. And you can get the media to show up. All right, next slide.
I just want to say, with legislation, like especially the For the People Act, where you already know who the co-sponsors are, this is where lobbying is really, really important. For example, Cinema and Manchin, if we stop calling them, for example, or calling people, calling constituents to give them a call, they won't think it's as important as it currently is. Direct and indirect pressure is really, really effective with senators, especially letters to the editor. Not to say this is why Warner said this, but I had one published in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and a week later, Warner came out saying he at least supported reforming the filibuster for the People Act. These are things that they notice, and because it is harder to get a meeting with a senator or your senator in general, these are really effective tools of lobbying in the federal rights, voting rights, and federal legislative sphere.
One of the fun things that I've noticed about my lobbying career is my senators generally don't want to see me. So if I want to get them on a bill, I can just call up their office. I don't even need to give them the name. I just tell them it's me. They'll know who it is. And then I tell them what bill I want them on. And I will tell them, I need you to be on that bill by tomorrow. If you are not there, I will be in your office. And tell him he knows he doesn't want that. Now, other bills that we will be working on once we move the For the People Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and DC statehood. We will be looking to promote, protect the voting rights of Native Americans and Alaska Natives. There were major things that were done starting in 2018 to make it very, very difficult for Indians who lived on reservations to be able to cast a ballot. Suddenly they were required to have addresses. They had never had addresses before, and it was like, what? Representative Mark Pocan of Wisconsin has not yet introduced his constitutional right to vote. So we are waiting for that. Now, a constitutional amendment is a very big thing. Not only do we need to move it through Congress, but we will also need to get 38 states to ratify it. So that is a huge lift. In the interim, Senator John Ossoff has introduced the Right to Vote Act. So we have a very simple bill that will merely require a majority in each chamber to be passed, as opposed to the constitutional right to vote. It is very difficult to amend the Constitution, and then once done, those protections are in place. Because there is no right to vote for everyone in the United States Constitution, where it's plainly stated that if you are of voting age and you are a citizen, you have a fundamental right to vote. There is no such thing in the US Constitution. The original Constitution gave rich white landowning men the right to vote. And then we said, oh, okay, I guess we got to give Black men the right to vote. And then in 1920, we were like, I guess we got to give women the right to vote. At no time did we ever go back and correct the Constitution and say voting is a fundamental right, that if you are of age and you are a citizen, nothing can take that right away from you. Senator Warnock and Representative Sarbanes have a bill preventing election subversion. This is in direct response to Georgia SB 202, where they announced that the Georgia Secretary of State could take over county boards of elections technically when they believed they weren't suppressing enough votes. And currently, they have begun the process of taking over the Fulton County Board of Elections, which is the largest bluest district in Georgia. Senator Ben Cardin is reintroducing the Democracy Restoration Act as a separate standalone bill because there is the possibility, the extreme probability, that if they do a skinny version of S1, they will drop the Democracy Restoration Act. Senator Gillibrand and Representative Jim Clyburn are going to be introducing or have introduced the Voter Empowerment Act, which is the main part of a lot of the voting bill, parts of the bill in H.R. 1S1. That was John Lewis's original bill. And then the Voters Access to Water and Stay in Line to Vote Act, Senator John Ossoff and Representative Susan Wild of Pennsylvania is again in response to Georgia's SB 202 law, making it a crime to give water or food to people standing in line waiting to vote. So these are bills that you will see later in advocacy alert and out on our social media. Next slide. I'm not going to go through the online legislative tools. I'll talk about them. These are things that we use every day. Josie spends a good deal of her life on track bill, following what bills have been introduced, how many co-sponsors, when is the bill going in committee. So these are all things that we follow on federal legislation and even on state legislation. I'm going to end here and give us about 5 minutes for Q&A. If people have any questions they want to ask me. And again, I'm going to thank you for coming and let you know that the slides, along with a link to the recording, will be sent to you. You'll probably get them on Monday. Yes, and very, very important to have people. Yeah, there's a note about DC. Now, there are people that have felony convictions and people who are in jail. In theory, people who are in jail but do not have felony convictions are eligible to vote in all 50 states. When people have been convicted of a felony and they are in prison or even out of prison, there is a patchwork of senseless rules that vary wildly from state to state as to when and under what circumstances those people can be reenfranchised. However, in Maine and Vermont, people never lose their right to vote there or their ability to vote, and they actually vote from federal prison. All right, Josie, are you seeing anything in there that I need to ask?
Alice is raising her hand.
Oh, go ahead.
You have to unmute yourself.
Right, unmute.
I had a question because it came up in a completely different context, but we're all we're all 501c3 and organizations, or some of us are. And there is some prohibition about lobbying for specific bills. So I wanted to get some advice. I thought I might have to go to an election expert. I thought you might.
Yes. Again, I lobby with churches. The rule is you cannot expend more than 15% of your budget on any lobbying activity. Every organization in the world has the ability to lobby. The rules concern how much you can lobby.
Thank you, Andrea. I just wanted to clarify that because it sort of caused a panic this week because we're working concentratedly on SB1 and SB4. So
yes, and you're fine. So in other words, as a 501c3, I could not take $100,000 of our money and hire a lobbyist.
Right. Well, okay. Thank you.
But if I show up and I lobby for free, and everything that I do on lobbying is not attached to what I'm paid for. I'm just going in as a citizen.
Right.
I'm good.
Thank you so much.
And it protects the organization. Yes. It's how much money did you expend for doing this? That's why a lot of organizations have 501c3s and 501c4s, because a C4 can lobby 24 hours a day and expend all their funds on lobbying. I've run a PAC of 501c4 and finally a C3. So I've literally gone backwards. Most people go the other way.
All right. I think Anne and then Rebecca.
Yeah.
I got interested in the felon voting thing. If you're a DC resident, but you're in a federal prison someplace else, can you vote in an election as a DC voter?
And the answer to that is no, because of a very strange thing that they do with prisons. And it has a huge negative impact on the census. Did you ever wonder why there are all these prisons in rural parts of southern states, but when you get to the county that has the prison, they've got brand new courthouse, brand new administration building, brand new library, may even have a brand new community college. That is courtesy of the people who are locked up in that prison, where they are counted in the census as being residents of that area. So they steal the federal money that should go to wherever those people originally lived. And that money is now going to where they are imprisoned, but they are not citizens and cannot vote there. That was another very obscure issue that the For the People Act addressed. It said people who are in prison, their legal residence is where they last lived prior to being incarcerated.
Rebecca, I think you're next.
Thank you. That was so informative. I would like to just slide back to Alice's question. When you're going in as a representative of a group and it's a 501(c)(3), but you're doing I'm an individual citizen and you're walking that tightrope, how do you present? Like, what is your little literal presentation language so you don't, ding the 501(c)(3), if you don't mind me asking? Thank you.
Well, and again, I I do that. When was I doing that? Well, we've always done that. And we even do that as faithful democracy. When we lobby as faithful democracy. But it's one of those things where we are all basically out of our paid roles and we are lobbying as citizens, but we are lobbying as faithful democracy, which is a C3. And every one of our members is a member or a leader of a church group. Franciscans in Action, Sisters of Mercy, Unitarian Universalists, the Religious Action Center on Reformed Judaism. So yes, we all introduce as our individual organizations, but it's like, for the moment, we're not being paid to do this, but I am a member of this organization. That is what we do. Right. Oh, all right. This is the long one. Okay. Yeah.
So I raised the issue of no labels because they have a compact. I sat down and talked at length with one of the funders of No Labels, who is a Republican financially, but on social issues is a Democrat.
Right.
And he's a independent, wealthy man. He's not an elected official. And he told me about how No Label works. And they have a concrete agreement. And so my view is we need to identify and solely focus on those Republicans who are in Congress and in, well, Congress less so, but Congress and Senate, who are, and I know that Manchin is a member of Senate, whatever her name is, Senate, who is, but it's Romney, Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and I'm sorry, my mind is addled. I don't have the other three names. But if they have a compact that they will vote no, if they don't have 75%. So we need 3 Republicans to get into the yes column. And that's what we should be concentrating on, because you're not going to move Sununu or Manchin unless they're beginning to get stuff from this other crowd. So do you have a strategy for that, Andrea? I'm sure you're aware.
No, not really. No, because no.
Well, I think we need to have one because this is a compact and they have stuck by it.
So. 3 more Republicans is theoretically a hell of a lot more likely than 10 to break the filibuster. But again, Sinema and Manchin isn't as big a problem as Sinema is in many respects, because Joe Manchin will go the way the wind blows. Sinema is one of these people willing to blow herself and everybody up for some odd principle. It's who she is. When I originally met Kristen Sinema, she was identified as a very progressive Democrat. As a matter of fact, she was so far over on the left, she was to the left of DSA.
Really?
Really? That was when I met her in 2010.
Not to, for folks that want to hop off, it's after 7, so no need to stay. I want to just say, but also, I actually think, another big thing that folks are doing around federal voting rights to get someone like Sinema to hopefully sway a little bit more around the filibusters, actually targeting Biden. He has a lot of influence, at least, over what bills will be prioritized. And something we really, really want him to do is, of course, he can't vote to change the filibuster or when the Senate can vote on things, but he came out and said that we should not change the filibuster, and that's a big, big issue. And so he's become actually a new big target for folks to lobby to come out in support of at least amending the filibuster to pass the For the People Act and other HR 4 as well.
And Kristen Sinema does kind of enjoy having the presidents here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, one of the interesting things when you lobby, as Alice put it, is having a strategy. Everybody wants something. Know what's important to them and figure out a way to either get it or make them lose it. And getting reelected is normally one of the things that's at the top of their list.
Okay. This is really
right.
helpful. Terrific stuff.
Good. Yes. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I've managed to forget to eat lunch. We won't even go into what I was going through and how I managed to do that. So I want to go and get dinner. And again, thank you all so very much for spending a good portion of your Friday evening with us.
Oh my gosh.
All.
Thank you. If we
Thank
can
you,
only